I'm passionate about sales in our industry. The trades needs to be done belly to belly. It needs to be face to face. Here's why. Communication, 8% of communication is words. I think it's 37% is tone of voice, but 55% is the body language, the emotions that come through that they can't stop. But when you say, here's a number, and they go, and wrinkle up their face, scratch their forehead, not a good sign. So you got to be able to, you can't see that through a fax or an email. And so I talk to guys all the time. Yeah, I'm going to fax them another proposal. Don't stop. Go face to face. Get some time with them. I want to make a friend before I make a sale. So you go back and you say, I was just thinking of you. Did you do anything yet? No, let me do this. Let me refresh the proposal.
Running a home service business is hard. So how is it that some people make it look so easy? Well, we'll tell you. This is the Freedom Blueprint Podcast. It's always good to hear the wins that successful contractors have. But have you ever thought that the best advice would be to hear about the speed bumps they encountered, the mistakes they've made along the way? We're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. We want you to be successful and avoid the mistakes others have made. Let's get this party started. Welcome to the Freedom Blueprint Podcast. Now your host, Justin Dees.
All right, we're ready to jump into today's show, and we have the man himself, Jim Hinshaw, coming and hanging out with us today. And Jim's only been in the home service space for, I think, a couple days now, right? Is it?
Again, half a century.
Yep. Somewhere in that range. If you don't know Jim, we're going to spend our time together learning more about Jim. And currently, his position is the Vice President of Sales of Service Nation Alliance, which we will definitely talk about Service Nation Alliance. I think it's such an amazing organization. My company is a part of it. The companies that I owned before were part of the organization. I think it's just a great group. But before we jump in and talk about that, let's jump into Jim's, how Jim got here. So first of all, Jim, thank you for coming and hanging out with us, man.
Man, Justin, I am thrilled and honored to be part of this podcast. Thank you so much for thinking of me.
Yeah.
And literally, I have admired your business for the last, I think you've been at Paradise Home Services for 3 years now, something like that.
We're about to have that anniversary here in about a couple of weeks.
Good. Excellent. You've done an incredible job. And you're one of the ones that I talk about from the front of the room saying, hey, this guy knows how to do this. And you're also one of our coaches, which is even better. And so you can help others understand, here's what you got to do. Here's how you got to execute. Here's how you got to be thinking about this and do some things different than just wait for the phone to ring. Waiting for the phone to ring doesn't work very well anymore. Is that?
It does not.
Man. So I'm so glad to be here. And you asked, how did I get started? I came out of University of Missouri at Rolla Engineering School, Bachelor of Science degree in engineering management. I used to say mechanical engineering, but actually my last year I switched to engineering management because I worked as a mechanical engineer in a lead mine in Viburnum, Missouri. And I decided, I don't want to be an engineer. I want to work with people, because they stuck me at the bottom of a lead mine. That's another story. Anyway, I ended up coming out of college. Actually, the year I was graduating, I'm not going to tell you. Is it okay to, I'm going to go ahead.
Absolutely.
Okay. 1970. And 1970 was a recession. And I'm talking about a real recession, not some wimpy little thing we got going on now. Okay. We had literally at University of Missouri, Rolla, General Motors would come up and interview engineers every year to be a graduate engineer working for them. Okay. They would hire 70 to 75 engineers every single year. 1970, they didn't show up. They didn't even come, Justin. They were not there. So I'm freaking out. I graduated in May. In October, a semester before, I'm down there in this hall where all these people come to interview you, walking up and down the hall. And I want to share with you how one little thing can change your life. Okay, one little thing. This is the first little thing to share. So I'm walking down the hall. There's a guy standing outside of one of these little booths where the vendors were, call them vendors, or prospective employers. And I walk up to him and say, hey, have you got somebody in line to talk to? He goes, nope, I don't. And we shook hands. And I saw on his college ring TKE, teak. I'm a teak. Probably shouldn't say this, but I will anyway. I slipped in the secret handshake. And he says, "Oh, are you one of us?" And I said, "Yes, I am, brother." And I use the word brother, and he goes, "We do need to talk. Justin, I got an offer 6 months before I'm going to graduate, 7 months actually, before I'm going to graduate. I was sitting pretty, my friend. And I believe it's because I asked him, are you a teak? Yeah, I am. And we connected at a different level than a student and a future employer. So that got me started. I got a job offer at a train company. He was with Train, so I got a job offer at a train company. I worked with them several years, about 15 years total, going across the nation. I ended up in Phoenix, Arizona. Let me back up. Can I back up?
Absolutely.
More small thing that makes a huge difference. In college, my best friend and I were sitting at a restaurant having some adult beverages. Okay. Is it okay to say that?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I have my hamburgers and a couple of beautiful girls on the other side. Now, University of Missouri, Rolla has 5,000 students and 300 girls. Okay. There was no women on campus. So when we see two girls, oh, hey, a couple of girls. So we sat down, talked to them, chatted them up. And they said, yeah. And they agreed to go out with us the next weekend. So the next weekend comes, as we're walking up to the door, these girls shared an apartment. As we're walking to the door, my fraternity brother cut in front of me. And he took the one that I had my eyes on. Okay. And I'm going, whatever. The one had long hair. That's the one that I had eyes on. And the one with short hair, we ended up talking together for the next 3 or 4 days. We grew into a relationship, and that's the girl I married. Okay. And Justin, you asked me how long I've been in this industry. It's so the end of May, it was 53 years. I graduated in 1970. I got married in 1969, 54 years. First wife, only wife. Friend of mine's been married 50 years, but it was 13 to the first wife, 17 to the second wife, 20 to the third wife. I don't think you can count it that way. So I'm going to go ahead and count it the way I feel good about it. So that, again, a little thing that makes a huge difference. I ended up running the train office in Phoenix, Arizona, and that was in early 80s. Justin, we had market share over 50%. That's the factory market share over 50% in Arizona. We own that territory. And so it was fun. It was a lot of fun. And then Train bought American Standard in 1982, 1984. I'm sorry, Train bought GE first, and then American Standard bought Train, changed the way they're doing business, changed how they're compensating people. I took a haircut, Justin. I took a massive haircut, my friend, and ended up leaving and joined a mechanical contractor, climate control, became president of that company, stayed there about 6 years. They were purchased by Jamaica Water and Power, a utility out of New York. Didn't go so well. They ended up buying 3 mechanical contractors at the same time and lost their ability to bond a job, and that's sudden death. So ended up leaving that, and I bought a small company that was owned by the carrier distributor. He took it on a bad debt. I said, I'll satisfy that debt if you'll sell me that company, and he did. So I ran that for a couple of years. It was small. It was $600,000 when I got it, $2 million when I sold it. So back in the 80s, when 600,000 was an okay number, now you're talking, your company has grown to 7 million plus in 3 years. Is that accurate?
Yep.
Things have changed. I had a friend of mine, Jim Donnelly Service Center. He was a train factory rep before me. We're talking at a meeting, and I'm just sitting around waiting for my next great adventure to start. And he said, what are you going to do next? I don't know. He said, I'd love to have you join me. So I came in as VP of Sales and Installations, Donnelly Service Center. We were doing about $1 million a year then. That was in 1990. We grew it to about $7 million by 1999. And I said, I want to be a partner. I want to move into this thing. And he goes, nope, got 3 sons. You're not one of them. So no partners. So I started my own consulting business, Sales Improvement Professionals Incorporated. There's still little whispers of that out there in the marketplace. And I still run occasionally into somebody that goes, oh, I know you. You were doing this sales training thing. Yep, I was. Did it for 20 years. I can remember this clearly. This is fun. I'm going to tell you the exact places. Okay.
That's fine.
Okay. I'm in Fresno, California, working with contractor, actually distributor, And he thumping me in the chest. You're going to do this. You're going to do this. You're going to do this. I said, hey, there's two words that are really important here. Independent consultant. I'm not a W-2. I'm a 1099. I am not your employee. Yeah, but I paid for you for this week. Therefore, in your mind, I go, yeah, I'm not. I said, just tear up that invoice. And I walked out the door, literally walked out the door, went home, called my wife, and I said, I'm done. She goes, you get done early? I said, no, I'm done. I'm done with people telling me how to do things, what to say, when to say it. I'm going to retire. 2019, October, I remember clearly. So I retired, came home. Justin, you're married, right? Okay. I came home and helped my wife, who'd been running the house by herself for 20 plus years. Can you imagine how long it took for her to kick me out of the house? Another 2 months, and she goes, you got to go back to work.
Yeah, Jim, you got to go find something to do. You're bothering me.
That's it. That's it, exactly. And she said, I married you for life, but not for lunch. So I said, oh, find something else to do. I called David Heimer. David Heimer, a senior VP at Service Nation. I did a lot of work for David and Matt Michelle back in the day. I was one of the first consultants they worked with. As a consultant, I would come in and do some things for them in a success day, things like that. I found a file where I did some work with the early AB groups, AB 53. I don't even know if I guess they're still out there, but I did a presentation for them back in 2012. That's going back a ways. So I came in and I said, hey, I'm going to fire up my consulting business again. And David said, oh, your future is very bright. And he invited me to come aboard as vertical market manager, HVAC. And that was in 2020. Then after I agreed and said, that's a great idea. He says, by the way, this is before the pandemic hit. He said, I really want you to move to Dallas, Texas. Okay. I was born in Dallas, so I'm coming home. So this literally worked out very well for me. I'm thrilled. I love what I do. Last year, I was named VP of sales, and we're having fun. And here's what the pilots say. Pilots say, I got runway left. So we're still having fun. Somebody just asked me, Tom Peregrino, look resident, said, how much longer? I said, I don't know. Until it ceases to be fun or my health gives up. So far, the health's good. Just had physical, everything's working. We're going to go ahead and keep doing what we're doing. We are having fun. And Justin, I don't want to go Oprah on you, but literally we're changing lives. And Service Nation is equipping people like you, and you are doing this on your own before you met us, but still we helped accelerate the process some for you to grow the business, scale the business.
Agreed.
Have an idea of what I'm going to do next. And we've got members anywhere from 250,000 a year to 250 million a year. And you can learn from the best with the Service Nation. So I took a track there, but that's where I am.
No, I think that's amazing. And I think it's cool, your journey, right? So
It is.
I think a lot of times when we're in this contracting space, people get hung up on, they think they have the same track, which is most people that are in our space have started out as a contractor for another company, got tired of it, started their own business. That seems to be the majority. And I don't actually know what percentage, but I would say the majority of people that, at least that I talk to, and probably yourself, that's the way they started, was they worked for either a family business or another company. And they went, this is crazy. I do this myself. Look how much money I generated for him, and I could just make that myself. And and then ultimately what happens is, as a contractor, then they jump in and they go, oh crap, it doesn't have anything to do with the widget. There's a whole nother animal out there. So I think it's really cool that your background is super diverse. And one of the notes that I wrote down as you were telling your story, because obviously I talked about this earlier, but you're the VP of sales for Service Nation. Here's my question. At what point did you realize you were good in sales?
Thank you. That's a great lead in. I can tell you that I learned the hard way. Okay. So I'm a fan of all kinds of information. I've read Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends, Influence People. Go back. Zig Ziglar was one of the better people on the planet when it comes to sales process. But I can tell you when I discovered I'm good at sales. And my first assignment for Train Company was running a sub office in San Antonio, Texas. And what I discovered when I got there, a sub office is you're working out of your home. Okay. And I had only one customer. And what I realized when I got there was, wow, The guy is not on good terms with us at all. He owed a bunch of money to the train. He didn't trust me, wouldn't let me in the building. Now, I'm a guy that's supposed to be working for him, and he wouldn't let me. The train was paying my salary, but he wouldn't let me in the building. And I'm going, well, what am I going to do? And he says, you figure it out. Make something happen. I bought a crisscross directory. Do you remember crisscross directory? Haynes crisscross.
I do not know.
Okay, you're young. So back in the day, they had this giant directory that was like 6 or 8 inches thick with names. And you could do it, you search by name or address. So you can go down the street, 146 West Surrey, here's who lives there. 152 West Surrey, here's who lives there. And just go straight by street. I called over 4,000 people, cold call. There's an article I've got somewhere in the archives here behind me in the San Antonio paper where a lady wrote into the San Antonio paper, said, I hate these callers that are calling. They don't have the right to do that, blah, 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 blah. And I responded. And I said, I'm sorry if I disturbed you. When you said you weren't interested, I took you off the list. But I said, this is my job, what I got to do. Called 4,700. I think the number was 4,712. And I got 2 sales. I had 5 or 6 prospects, but I got 2 sales out of it. I can remember them well. One was a lieutenant colonel from the Air Force Base in San Antonio. The second was an English teacher. The English, this is so much fun. This is so good. The English teacher drove an Oldsmobile 442. That's Oldsmobile equivalent to a GTO.
Mm-hmm.
So we bonded over the car before I sold her system. And that's when I figured people buy emotionally. Like logically.
Mm-hmm.
She's a school teacher. What is she doing with a 442? And this is a beast. It was white with red leather interior. Beautiful. And she's probably in her 60s. And I'm going, golly. She said, it's what I wanted. I didn't need it. It's what I wanted. Okay. She bought out of emotion. And that's what people do, Justin. And I don't have to tell you that. But so you end up, when you see that, and then you figure out a way to connect emotionally, man, I'm not going to say sales is easy. It's still, you got to be on your game today, especially more than ever before. But I would say that was early on in my career. That was the second year of, first year of my life with Train Company. So I saw that and I cold called and I just kept cold calling because that was my assignment, keep cold calling. Then I got a chance to move back to Phoenix and take over the office there. And I still felt good about the sales process, just at a different level. It was at a distributor level instead of one-on-one consumer. So, yeah, I would say probably 1971, if you want to date.
So the note that I wrote down, and this ties to what you just said, was you were talking about when you were in school still and you were walking through and you noticed and paid attention to the ring the guy was wearing and instantly it bonded you. And I think, and this may have been the reason I picked up on it, is I was just doing sales training with a team this morning. And that's what we were talking about, was about pay attention. Like when you go into someone's home, you're getting all the information you need. If you walk in and they've got solar panels all over the roof, efficiency is important to them. If you walk in, there's bottles of water everywhere. Then that was what I wrote down, was how awesome it is. Even at that age, you knew to connect on some level. How many kids probably passed through there and was like, yeah, can I have a job? Or, hey, can I? I'll be graduating soon.
You know? Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Now, so then you think about the difference between salespeople being born and trained. And I do think there's right? So some people just have the ability to be better with conversation than others, but it certainly doesn't mean you can't be trained.
Justin, I'm going to disagree with you there.
Okay.
I got a friend of mine who's a doctor. And I said, he delivers babies. I said, so how do you know which ones are born salespeople? He goes, there is no such thing. He says, there's baby girls, baby boys. There's no born salesperson on the planet. It's a skill that has to be acquired and nurtured. And some people are better at that skill than others. Just like I can't play basketball. I've tried. I had a basketball hoop in the backyard, and a friend of mine said, hey, you got to sit there and just throw the 3-pointers. I didn't know what a 3-pointer is. So I'm not any good at that. I can't dribble or anything else. I can talk. And so it's a skill, though, that has to be enhanced. And yep, there are some people that are more readily available to enhance that skill of talking, and even the art of persuasion. It's an art.
Mhm.
It's not something you pick up instantly. You got to work on it. And that's why I still go to sales meetings. I still buy sales books. I got 2 or 3 of them behind me right here. It's a continual process, because you got to do something better today than you did yesterday. Here's what I know. I went to a Tony Robbins seminar recently, and I paid my own money to go. So Tony says, hey, today, if you want good results, you're going to have to put out extra effort. If you want better results, you're going to have to put out supreme effort. And everything we do today has to go up a notch. So if you want supreme results, you're going to have outstanding effort. It's going to take more effort to do what needs to be done, because today, I just saw an article on this. This is interesting. Consumer today is plagued with impressions on marketing, 4 to 10,000 a day. 4 to 10,000. They got a whole bunch of stuff going on in their brain. There's only 100 of them get through to the cortex. Only 100. I want to be one of the 100. I want them to go, oh yeah, I know him. I know that company. I know that product, whatever it is. I want them to say, oh yeah, I recognize that, because they're being bombarded. 50 years ago, that's where the study started. It said we were at 400 to 1,200 impressions a day, not 4,000 to 10,000. I think it's Malcolm Gladwell says the guy who's really good at his art practices 10,000 times or more.
Yep.
Okay. That's the case. I've been to Toastmasters. I've done all kinds. I'm in Rotary right now. I'm at the front of the room in Rotary doing some things to help open up the meeting. It's a constant process to stay on your game. And somebody might say, well, I'm going to retire from my job as an educator, chemist, or stockbroker, or whatever. If you're in sales and you're thinking, I'm going to retire, that's the day you're going to quit, period. So I'm not going to retire. Then my wife just asked me this, how much longer? I don't know. But as long as I'm having fun, I'm going to keep doing what I've been doing. And this is fun, and I've got to keep growing. You can't sit back.
There's so many exciting things going on with Service Nation right now that I would imagine it's a pretty good time. But before we get into that,
yeah.
So with all of this experience, knowledge, different paths you've taken,
yeah.
What is something that 10 years ago, 20, 30, however many years ago, that you wish you would have known, and what would that have helped you avoid? Is there that one thing where you go, man, I wish I would have known?
So it goes back to when I was at Train Company and American Standard bought us, and I moved over to one of my customers, Climate Control, and they're no longer in business in Phoenix, but they're a mechanical contract. And they did Terminal 3 and 4 at the airport. They did cogeneration plants, and they were literally ahead of their time. I wish at that point I'd done more research on how to duplicate that, because when they were purchased by Jamaica Water and Power out of New York and then crashed up on the beach, I should have gone to another mechanical contractor and say, hey, I got this information. I can put together a package for you. And we were doing 8 to 10 million a year. We did about 3 million worth of residential work in addition, union shop. Okay. So several things. I wish I'd been on a better ability to connect with the union, major players in the union, to say, hey, help me transfer this piece of business, this idea, this skill set I have to this other big mechanical contractor, because I think we could have owned it. Didn't do that. Instead, bought a really small company, grew it. And Justin, that was fun. You've done things like that. It was fun. But boy, it did not have the financial reward that I thought. And then, to take it a step further, I didn't do my research on the guy that I had to sell it to. And he was from out of our country, and he defaulted. And I had an attorney that was a Navy SEAL. This guy was, he's tough.
I will go get your money.
Yeah. And he said, Jim, I'll go as far as you want. However, he owns nothing in the States. Everything's in Canada. man, it is so difficult to cross that border and go chase it. So that was about a $70,000 haircut. But you know what? I learned something. And I learned you double check everything. You do your due diligence. And that's true if you're buying a company or selling a company, either one. You've got to do the due diligence because we've got members that have come to me and said, wow, and everything in place. And literally at closing, the guy who was buying it wouldn't sign a personal guarantee. And it blew up right there in front of their eyes just in the last month. And I'm going, that's part of their due diligence, my friend. You got to get that checked, get that box checked early because that can cost you money.
If you're like me, reading the financials falls at the bottom of the priority list, unless there is no money in the bank. Then I dig in and get even more frustrated because, let's be honest, I don't even really know what I'm looking for. If this sounds like you, then I'd say it's time for you to get a virtual CFO, and I have just the recommendation for you. Kristen Deese is the virtual CFO of the home service industry. She is an expert in all the numbers and will remove the overwhelm so you can use your numbers as a tool for growth. She'll even train your in-house accounting team because, after all, how could you possibly train someone to do something that you don't really know how to do yourself? You can find out all about how she can help you take the F word out of your financials by going to thefwordofbusiness.com. I think sometimes it's easy to get excited about the possibility, the potential, and not just buying or selling, but just in general, anything, and avoiding. Chris and I did a podcast about the cost of a bad hire. And what we were talking about was yellow and red flags.
Yep.
And that system applies to literally anything you're doing, whether you're buying a company, selling a company, hiring a new employee, adding a new piece of equipment, like whatever that looks like. You always want to go through that process of, okay, is there any yellow flags with this? Is there any red flags with this? What does that look like in order to make sure that we're making a good decision? Because we do, like you mentioned earlier, we buy on emotion. We are still customers.
We are. Yeah.
We're customers. So we still do the same thing that customers do, and we buy emotionally. And sometimes we forget about how are you going to protect yourself in whatever it is you're doing.
Exactly. How about those assets? Okay. And that takes me off on another thread here that I'm going to jump in on. It applies to the marriage bond that you have with your spouse. And so when I started dating my wife, talking about things, and at one point she goes, I'll take you to dinner tonight. You're the starving college student. I'm working. She's working for Missouri State Probation and Parole. Okay. I didn't meet her professionally yet. I know. I see that glimmer in your eyes. No, it was not a professional meet. We just met at a restaurant.
There I was walking into probation.
There it is. There it is. See, right away. That's where your mind goes. Okay. So we're talking and she goes, I'll buy you dinner tonight. Get my wallet out of my purse. So I got her wallet out and I flopped over her driver's license. And I go, this is weird. They got your birth date wrong in your driver's license. She goes, just a second happened. I go, well, how old are you? She goes, well, I'm 16. 16. Did I mention Missouri State Probation and Parole was where she worked? Did I mention that? I did mention that. And I'm 22. Okay. So you can read all that in there you want. I go, what? What the heck? Well, how did you graduate early? She goes, she's one of 8 kids. And when her older sister was going to school, her mom went down to the principal and said, can I send the youngest one as well? She goes, why? I haven't been out of the house in 8 years. I'm going crazy. I need a break. And she goes, was she smart? She goes, she's a genius. 4 years old, she started first grade. Graduated at 15. Okay.
Wow.
She is a genius. So we taught, this is interesting, we taught 11th graders for about a decade at a big Baptist church in Phoenix, North Phoenix Baptist Church. And we're talking to these 11th graders, and we said, you got to be careful who you're dating because you got to look at the heart, not the head. And so everybody wants to date the cheerleader or the quarterback, but that's not the thing you look at. Well, they'd say, Mrs. Hinshaw, how old were you when you got married? She'd go, it's not that important. I'd say, go ahead and tell them. Go ahead. Okay, I was 17. Oh, how did you know and we don't? She goes, because I've been out of school 2 years already. You got to do the same due diligence. I hate to keep beating the same drum, but you got to do the same due diligence when you're thinking about And believe me, that's the high emotion connection, right? You fall in love.
Mm-hmm.
You still got to be sure that you got a footing there and some ability to say, yeah, this is a person I want to spend my life with, no matter what happens. That's the key. So I'm sorry, I got distracted there. I'm back. So
No, I think it's good. Listen, the whole point of the podcast is wins, losses, and lessons learned. So
yeah, yeah.
there's all that good stuff out there.
So one of the lessons I learned being in business for myself, one of the things you got to prepare for that rainy day, because as a consultant, I had a single entrepreneur. I guess my boys were helping me with. A wife kind of ran the business, and we did pretty well for a number of years. We worked with major manufacturers, almost all of them. I worked with the dealers, distributors. I had programs for service technicians, for office staff, everything. But I'll guarantee you this, as a business owner, no matter which business you're in, commercial, industrial, anything, you got to be prepared for that rainy day when the business isn't there. And this is a good example. This year is a good example. Justin, you're in Florida, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yep.
We're in Texas. We didn't have a winter. It never really got bitter cold. We might have had one day under 30 degrees, but very few. Up till the end of June, we didn't have any summer. Now, July cooked us. We're now at 25 days over 100 degrees in a row. So every single day. But if you were depending on that winter business to get you flush into the summertime and it didn't show up, I was working with a contractor in Phoenix, Arizona a few years ago. It was August. The high temperature, the week I was there in August, was 74 degrees. High temperature.
Wow.
He's got 22 technicians. They literally had a fight in the parking lot to get into the building to see who'd get the one service call for that day. So you got to be prepared for that. And the phrase I use, you got to weatherproof your business. You got to have a business model that works even when the weather doesn't drive you. And I say this all the time. You cannot let the weather control your business. It will affect your business. There's no doubt of that. But you can't let it control your business. You got to have business weatherproofing, meaning typically files that you pull out. And one of them we call is our emergency marketing file. And when you don't have anything going on, when the phone is not ringing and the temperature is not helping out, pull that emergency marketing file. And maybe that's a file that says, here's what we did in the past and it worked. And you start duplicating it. Here's what we didn't do in the past. And we missed an opportunity that you pick that up and you do something different than what you did last year. You work hard on your existing customers. You go back. Now you got me wound up.
No, you're good. I'm taking notes because I want us to go a little bit deeper on, okay, cool. If your traditional marketing isn't working, what are some things that the listeners can do in order to drive business?
Here's what I know. I know Home Depot did a study a few years ago on Home Depot comfort consultants that were in the store giving quotes to customers. And they went back a year later and said, what's happened? How did you do? And they go, 34% of them said I didn't do anything. 34%. Okay. If that's the case, you got to go back in your files, maybe 2 years, maybe 3 years, 4 or 5 years, and pull up all the quotes you made and call them up, the ones you didn't sell, and call them up and say, hey, I was thinking of you. People don't like to be bothered with a sales call. They like to be thought of. And say, I was thinking of you. And I know we talked 2 years ago about your home. And I recall clearly you had that Pomeranian that was right there at the foot of my feet the whole time, looking intently at me. And how's the dog doing? Passed, he's good, whatever it is. So you start out with emotional connection, right? Like I said. But by the way, we talked about a system for your home. What have you done? And you might find they've done nothing. So that's the first thing I would do. I'd go back to those customers that I already have a relationship with.
Yep. That you've already spent the money to be in the home.
There you go. You're already invested, right? You're
right.
invested in them. And Justin, I know this. We take a lot of interest in our business. Heating and air, plumbing, electrical, whatever our business is, any of the trades. Here's the harsh reality. The consumer doesn't have that same degree of interest in our stuff. An illustration I have is I was buying a car up in Colorado. We lived in Colorado 15. We followed a grandson in Colorado. I wouldn't follow the son across the street, but the grandson. suck you right out of a house you've been in. The grandson up there, we're going to buy a Colorado car, which in our thinking was a Subaru because it's all-wheel drive and they go amazing in all the snow. And so I called around, got 3 or 4 dealers looking at it, blah, blah, blah. And then my mom went into the ER and literally took about 3 months, but she's no longer with us, okay? That occupied all my thinking for 3 or 4 months. It's not like I didn't need the car, but it was not critical to what was going on. So that's what happens in life. Life gets in the way and you go, what about that furnace we talked about? You know what? It's not critical, Jim. So you called him back. He said, hey, I was thinking about you. So have you done anything? I know we talked about a new furnace for you. Have not done anything yet. Wow. I would love just to stop by. Justin, I'm passionate about sales in our industry. The trades needs to be done belly to belly. It needs to be face to face. Here's why. Communication, 8% of communication is words. I think it's 37% is tone of voice. But 55% is the body language, the emotions that come through that they can't stop. Now, when you say, here's a number, and they go, and wrinkle up their face, scratch their forehead, not a good sign. So you got to be able to, you can't see that through a fax or an email. And so I talk to guys all the time. Yeah, I'm going to fax them another proposal. Don't stop. Go face to face. Get some time with them. I want to make a friend before I make a sale. So you go back and you say, I was just thinking of you. Did you do anything yet? No, let me do this. Let me refresh the proposal. Don't say update it because that means you're going to add money to it. Let me refresh that proposal with some new concepts because there's some products that have just come in the market. So Justin, you're in a business. Isn't it amazing? The products today we have at our disposal that we didn't have 5 years, 10 years ago. You look at indoor air quality. We got products that can scrub that air amazingly well. We've got thermostats that can not only predict the weather, they can tell you, oh, storm's coming, but they'll call you if there's a problem with your system and you're not even at home. So we got some tools, my friend.
Systems have even changed this year. You know,
they haven't taken. So when you start thinking about that, we do have some updating we can do. Let me refresh that proposal for you. Give you an idea what the latest tools that you have at your disposal for helping create comfort in your home. What we're doing, Justin, we're not selling, we better not be selling boxes. We're selling comfort. And comfort is so unique. It's unique to that home and that individual. My wife gets migraines. You mentioned earlier that you heard a buzz in our system here, and my wife gets migraines. And literally this year, we're in a brand new home. Made in 2020. We moved in April of 2020, brand new home. Last year, changed out the dishwasher. It was not bad. It had not broken. It still worked just fine. In fact, the guy that took it gave us a little bit of money for it, but it was loud. And at one point, she's sitting on that sofa and she goes, if that thing starts up while I'm watching TV, I go turn it off because I can't stand it. It's too loud. I go, wow, it's that big a deal. I better take some action because I'm pretty sure if it's a dishwasher or me that's going to leave the house, oh, let's get the dishwasher out of here, right? So we ended up changing out a dishwasher that was only 2 years old and it worked just fine, but it was loud.
And how many people, how many technicians go to a home and they don't even talk about new systems because they go, what's only 5 years old?
Exactly.
Technology's changed a whole lot. And it doesn't mean you got to go straight pitch mode for a 5-year-old system, but you can certainly ask the questions to start the conversation of, hey, is there anything about the system that you would change? Or there's some exploratory things you can do.
Yep. I call that the magic wand question. If you had a magic wand, you could change anything about your comfort system. What would that be? Efficiency, sound, vibration, operating cycles, humidity, all the things that we talk about, but we don't do a deep dive on. When they say humidity really frustrates me, got some solutions for that. Look at 2-stage, you can look at variable, you can look at all kinds of things. And today, to your point, we do have products that are amazing and are even getting more amazing. Have you been installing mini ductless mini splits in your market?
We do. We're starting to see a lot more in the garage units now because we're in Florida, and you go into a garage, it's melting season.
It is a net.
Yeah.
And if you ever want to do anything in that garage, you're going to be sweating.
Right.
It's going to be humid enough.
Including
So
walking into your car. If you park in the garage, like just walking into the car, by the time you get there in Florida with the humidity, you're just dripping with sweat.
And that's exactly what we are today. It's going to be 106 today and about 88% humidity. 88%. When I got in the car this morning, exactly what you said, man, it was already wet just from walking in there. So we're seeing Douglas mini splits. And part of that is that federal government helped out. They have the Inflation Reduction Act, which gives you some credits for looking at products like that. But you can look at some of those mini splits. They're amazing. They have got efficiency. I saw one recently that's 41 SEER. 41. It's just incredible. Now, they're paying significantly more than an average, but still, it's the best. And they've got thermostats that you can have on the kitchen table, and they're wireless, and they can sense when you're in a room, and you can hear anything you want on that TV because they're quiet. So we have got some products that are game changers.
So it makes me think about everybody wants to buy, but no one wants to be sold. So just from a technician or sales standpoint, for anybody listening out there, just keep that in mind, right? Nobody wants the pinky ring wearing used car sales pitch. That's not what they want. And your job when you go into the home is to just advise the customer on the things that could enhance their life, because that's really what they care about. We talk in our company, like there's kind of two golden rules. Don't lie to a customer ever, and don't buy for a customer. So don't walk in a home and think, they can't afford it or they don't want it. That's not your place. Present the option and then talk about it. So Jim, I know you're busy being the VP of sales for Service Nation. I do want to talk a little bit more about Service Nation, but I know you are busy and have a ton of stuff to do. So would you be willing to jump back on here and talk a little bit more about Service Nation another time?
Will it be at the same rate, what we negotiated?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Good.
Except 2 truckloads of money and a barbecue sandwich.
I love it. I love it. I'd love to, Justin. That would be fun. Yep.
Cool.
You let me know when, and I'll make it available.
I'll do it. Well, guys, again, Jim Hinshaw, the man, the myth, the legend. I dig all the wisdom. I've got tons of notes that I wrote down here. Thank you so much for being here. And to the Freedom Blueprint community, check out Service Nation. If you don't know Jim and you don't know about Service Nation, make sure you check it out and come hang out with guys like Jim and Tom and me and other contractors. Come hang out with us. So we appreciate it. Thank everybody for checking us out. And thank you, Jim, for jumping on with us.
Justin, thank you much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the Freedom Blueprint Podcast. Information is useless if not applied. So take what you've learned and go and implement it. We hope you've enjoyed the show. If you did, make sure to like, rate, and review. We'll be back soon. But in the meantime, find us on social media at Freedom Blueprint for Home Services and hit the website at www.freedomblueprintpodcast.com. See you next time.